Hello, everyone, and welcome to Breakthroughs with Bree. On this podcast, we are discussing all of the topics that help us have breakthroughs on our personal and spiritual development journeys. My name is Bree, otherwise known as Healing with Bree, and I'm a channeler, energy healer, tarot reader, astrologer, and soul alignment coach. My mission in my work and in this podcast is to help teach people how to shift their consciousness, how to heal, and how to release beliefs and patterns and fears of their ego mind so that they can step into alignment with their soul to live lives of abundance, purpose, and bliss. In these episodes, I will be sharing either through my own lens and my own channel or through the experiences of my guest, wisdom and expertise about healing, spirituality, psychology, personal growth, holistic wellness, mysticism, consciousness, and so much more. My hope is that these conversations help you feel seen and provide support and inspiration for you with your own personal breakthroughs. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Breakthroughs with Bree. Today we have such a special episode. I am doing a coaching session for somebody who volunteered, and it is recorded for you to be able to listen to in this episode. I had the inspiration for it in that episode 48. I said, hey, if anybody would be interested in volunteering to have their session, happen over the podcast, somebody reached out. She is wonderful. She was perfect. She was so thoughtful, and her approach to it and this session was sensational. She in particular had an inspiration of her soul that she really wanted to bring to life, and one of her patterns that came up was people pleasing and being afraid of what people would think, and also being a little bit afraid of how it was all going to come together and exactly how it was going to work. So if you relate with maybe a little bit of people pleasing tendencies or a fear of enacting something because you're not exactly sure how it's all going to come together, then I really feel like you're going to get so much from this episode and so much from listening into the session. What was really fun about it is, of course, I was, guiding her through what I would a one-on-one coaching session with somebody, but I would pause and address the audience, address all of the listeners and say, okay, guys, this is something really cool to kind of see about what's going on here. So you are a fly on the wall, but I do take some asides to be able to explain to you how we're moving through the triggers and what parts are really important to identify so that you can use this trigger alchemy process that you get to witness me guide a client through yourself. I'm going to put some of the clips of what she said after we finished up right here so that you can hear just how crazy and how impactful this session was for her.
I have had psychology for years to try and address my people-pleasing tendencies. Yeah, I have a business coach and I have a psychologist, and they both have been trying to work on this probably 6 or 7 years. And I feel like in the last hour, I've gained so much more. I have such a deeper understanding about it than I ever got to in 6 or 7 years. And I don't even know how much I would have spent towards psychology, but this was the way. This is exactly what I needed.
If the sound of that is something that excites you, then I really encourage you to sit back and relax and listen to this full episode. Feel free to take some notes for yourself on all of the details about if you're interested in working with me in my coaching and having me help you through a similar process. All of the details of that are in the links in my show description, and I hope you guys enjoy this. Hi, everyone. I am welcoming to the podcast today a very special person who is going to sort of be the example and provide some context to what a coaching session with me might look like. So I'd like to welcome BreAnne, which is kind of fun that we share a similar name, to the podcast. Hi, BreAnne. How are you today?
Hi, Bree. I'm so good. I'm so excited for this.
I'm so excited for this too. Okay, so I'm just going to have you start by sharing a little bit about what motivated you to want to do this session and what it is that's sort of your motivation behind all of this.
Sure. So I was extremely inspired by your podcast talking about the differences between the ego and the soul. And it just really called to me that I want to learn how to live my authentic soul life. I think in my email to you, I said, I need to get myself off planet ego and I want to take a vacation to planet soul and then hopefully just stay there.
Oh my gosh, I loved that. You said my goal is to reside on planet soul, and I was so giddy about that. That was so fun.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of my life, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, that, my goals and aspirations, they've been, anxiety driven and self-worth driven and perfectionist driven. And I've just lived my life, as you said, doing things, fixing things. And I would love to learn how to live more in flow and in whatever capacity that might be for me.
I love that. Okay, so for this session specifically, what is one of the ways that you are feeling inspired or led to bring through some of that soul energy? What is one of those things that you are feeling like you'd like to embody or you'd like to take action on or you would like to manifest? And what do you feel like is kind of coming up maybe from that ego place and feeling like it's stopping you or blocking you in some way?
Okay, yes, I feel that I have been living along my soul's path. I feel like I'm in the right place in my life. I just feel that I'm at a crossroads where something's next. So I'm a physical therapist, or in Canada we call it physiotherapist, and I really felt this draw to add something a little bit more spiritual to my practice, and Reiki's really been calling my name. I think my ego side is nervous because I just to take the leap and even take that course, I don't know how good I'm going to be about it. I don't know what others are going to think about me doing it. I have no idea how I'm going to integrate it into my practice. There's just so many factors that I feel are blocking that path, even though it keeps on coming up. And I know and I feel passionate about the idea of learning how to do Reiki.
Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm going to pause our conversation for a minute to talk to the listeners. Okay, I'm going to
Okay.
explain what's going on right now. So what I'm hearing her describe is that she's having one of those soul level inspirations, right? And usually those inspirations, by the way, are born from some other level of desire, like maybe wanting to be more deeply fulfilled. Sometimes it can have to do with us wanting more prosperity or abundance in our lives, or maybe it's even just us like being more authentic or like, being more connected with our intuition. And when we have that initial desire, then inspiration and ideas start to come through of how we can let source move through us to create that kind of experience internally and then also start to shift our external reality. And it feels like to me, this motivation, this idea, this inspiration that you have about, getting certified in Reiki and potentially adding it into your practice is an example of one of those things. And then sure enough, like it always happens, whatever ego pattern or ego belief is sort of like opposite in vibration, I guess you could say, tends to come up because as we think about moving towards that soul energy, whatever is like too dense for that, like shows itself because really, ultimately, we want to be able to drop that, right? But we just haven't learned how to move through those fears in a way where we can transmute them, where we can show them compassion, where we can come out on the other end feeling more empowered and more free because society really only teaches us that we either have to drop into the anxiety, we sort of have to surrender to that way of being about it, right? Or that we have to suppress it and we have to run away from it. And that only ever makes it worse. So we haven't really been taught as a society really good options for like what to do when some of those blocks come up, which is what I'm excited to talk with you more about today. So I'm going to start by asking you some questions so that we can start to connect with this fear energy, because that's always the first step is like, why don't we welcome it in? Let's see it for what it really is. Let's let it have some space so that it can show us what it needs to show us and eventually have some space to move out. But to start off with, BreAnne, what is one of the things that you are most afraid of happening if you follow the soul inspiration? Let's just say you go after this Reiki certification, et cetera, et cetera.
So I'm definitely a people pleaser. And I would say the number one thing that I'm afraid of is people judging me adding Reiki to my practice in a negative way.
Love that because I know a lot of people are going to relate to that. Where I'm going to start is by offering how we even start to speak about it. You have a pattern of people pleasing. You
Right.
are source. You know that you can be authentic and it not negatively impact people and that you can feel safe. Like that's the energy that you are, but you do have a pattern that tends to get into this people pleasing cycles for all the reasons that you do. Okay. So people might judge you negatively. What bad thing happens if people judge you negatively because you started to incorporate Reiki?
My pattern is that I would worry that I would lose clients, or if friends don't understand, then I would, worry that they would look at me in a different light and maybe lose, friendships, or colleagues or family would look at me in a different light. That would be my pattern. Yeah.
Okay. So the fear, when we're connecting with this fear part of yourself, the story that they're telling you is that if you pursue this, not only could you get judged, but the result of you getting judged is maybe you get abandoned or
Yes.
rejected by people that are important to you. If that did happen, according to this like fear part of yourself, is it the thought of being like alone without friends because they've left you, without clients that you can support? Like, is that the part that feels really painful? Or is it the thought of being like misjudged by those people? Like, what part of them potentially abandoning, rejecting you, like, what part of that feels most scary to you?
Well, I got all teary when you said the fear of being alone. So I'll say that one.
Yep, the body tells us. The body tells us, man. Okay. So the fear of being left alone because you followed something that was authentic to you.
That sounds pretty sad, but I guess so. Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Okay. And just as a little aside for that, we can acknowledge that that feels sad, right? That that feels really depressing, but we're also not judging it, right? Like there's nothing wrong with you that you have a fear of this, right? And it makes perfect sense if there was a part of you that really believed that would happen, that that would be so devastating, right?
I think connecting too with the idea of self-worth because I'm a people pleaser, I want everybody to see me in the best light possible. And if they don't see me in the best light, then I have this pattern of it lowering my self-worth.
Okay. So what we can do is we can connect the dots on this a little bit, right? Like even in this example of you, taking this action that feels authentic and being judged for it, what we can see is that what you're really afraid of is being alone,
Yeah.
right? Now, the surface layers of the onion, you could say, is like, oh, people will judge me and they'll think not nice of me. And that's like the first layer of it, right? Which is why I think it's really important to have some good self-inquiry questions for us to get a little bit deeper. Like, why does that seem so scary? Why does that, feel so painful, so that we can get to the heart of it? And really, it feels like for this example, the heart of it is the thought of being left alone because you did something that felt true to you, is something that like really hits a painful place in you, right?
Yes.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to connect with that energy because, and this is a little bit of a side to the listeners, like when we have patterns like this that come up, they are not just about this pattern. They're usually like originating somewhere in our early life. And it's that unresolved energy that needs to be addressed if we want to really like release this at the root. Okay. So I'm going to guide you in and kind of like a little bit of a meditation. So you can close your eyes and listen to my voice. Okay. So I want you to direct your attention and your energy into your body. We're going to go somewhere that looks and feels really safe to you. I recommend this being through the heart center. So you can imagine letting your energy or your attention focus on your heart center, like that place in your body for a minute. And once you feel connected to that heart center energy, imagine in your third eye, in your mind's eye, a door. And on your next exhale, walk through the door and enter your sacred heart space. And in this place, you feel so safe. Like this is your personal, fun, beautiful, spiritually connected, magical place. It's just yours. And then I want you to imagine walking to a place where you can meet with this part of yourself and your higher self. Maybe you want to walk into a room with a table. Maybe you want to walk outside to a meadow. Maybe you want to walk to a bench, wherever you feel intuitively guided. And when you get to this place, I want you to invite the part of yourself that is really afraid of being alone, this part. And I want you to see her walk towards you. Still keeping your eyes closed through all of this, I also want you to invite your higher self to come join you, the part of you that is wise, is connected to all incarnations of your soul, connected to source, walks over and joins you as well. And I want you to remember as we start to connect with this fearful part of yourself at any point, if it starts to feel a little overwhelming, you can always turn to your higher self and they will help give you support and help give you peace. In a moment, I'm going to start guiding you to ask questions to this fearful part of yourself. And I want you to ask her these questions and then share her answers out loud. So we turn to this fearful part of yourself, the part that is terrified at being left alone and who has developed this pattern of trying to appease people and appear as good or positive as possible to stay connected. I just want you to turn to her and observe her, what she looks like, what kind of energy she's putting off, maybe her age. And I want you to ask her, how are you feeling? And go ahead and share out loud what she says.
Oh, might be hard for me to share it out loud when I'm crying.
It's okay.
um,
Your crying is a release of all of this energy that's ready to go.
oh, um, she said, I'm not good enough.
She's feeling not good enough.
Um, it definitely gave me, well, while you're talking through that, a couple flashbacks. I I have a great family. I feel so fortunate for that. My parents have always been so supportive and they're wonderful. And for some reason, I went through this phase. We had moved cities, and so I was at a new school, and I was 9 or 10 years old. And for some reason, I just had this fear that my parents were going to leave. And so
Mm,
I'd sit at the top of the stairs every night and make sure that I could hear them to make
mm,
sure that they hadn't left. And
mm,
I don't know how long I went through that phase, but it was months and months. And then as you were talking through this, I thought back to why I might have felt that way. And I tried asking my higher self, and she said, so I got another flashback. When I was one, I had a really, really bad case of croup, and I was admitted to the hospital, and I had to be in this oxygen tent. And so I just imagined myself, I guess at 1 years old, in this oxygen tent. And so I'm not sure if that's where this fear could be based in, but that's what just happened as you were talking.
mm. Thank you for sharing that. Even though your video's off, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes again because I have a feeling we opened them.
Yes, it did.
And I'm just going to say, as an aside to the listeners, if you are trying this kind of method, one of the best things that you can do is stay in your body. And one of the best things that helps us stay in our body is by keeping our eyes closed and almost kind of asking these questions into our body, even as we're imagining these parts of ourselves that we're asking them to. Because the answers about the wisdom, about where this energy is coming from and the beliefs and stories that it holds come from our body and really from our subconscious mind. And when we jump into thinking about it, which is our reflex, right? We start to disconnect from that energy, which also means we can't access it as deeply. So, BreAnne, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes again. Just take some deep breaths. Imagine that you're back in that really safe place with this scared self and your higher self. And again, I want you to connect to how she feels. You're so intuitive that you're already starting to pick up on where these feelings have come from, and we're going to get there. But at first, we have to connect with the feeling. We have to be able to receive the feeling, almost like a parent would a small child who's really upset. She said that she feels not worthy and she feels scared. And so for a minute, I just want you to receive her fear, receive her belief that she might not be good enough, and just be a compassionate space for her to express that and for that to be seen. And I want you to ask her again, how are you feeling, and see what else she might tell you while keeping your eyes closed, staying connected with her. How else is she feeling?
Sad and anxious.
Mm, she's feeling sad and
I
anxious.
think I maybe scared.
Mm.
Yeah.
Again, I just want you to receive that, reflect that back to her. Yep, you were feeling sad and scared and anxious.
She's just hugging a teddy bear and kind of shaking.
Hmm. I want you to ask her, why are you feeling sad and scared and anxious right now?
Uh, I mean, the first thought in my head was, I want people to like me.
Hmm. Yeah, when you ask these questions to her, just see where they come up, but a lot of times they come up in the body. She says, I want people to like me. What else has caused her to feel sad or scared or anxious?
I'm not getting an answer for that one.
Okay, just going to stay with her. I want you to ask her, why is she afraid of people not liking her?
If people don't like me, then they won't be my friend anymore, is what she
Mm,
said.
mm. I want you to ask her, why does that make her feel so sad or so anxious?
I think it's just that she likes being around people, likes being in groups of people. Yeah, likes having, I guess, supportive family and friends.
I want you to ask her, where did she learn to be afraid that she wouldn't get this connection or support?
I think it was just really drilled into my head from an early age that I like had to be the best that I could be, that I had to like be as perfect as possible. I had to be always like happy and positive and like I mean just everything trying to be perfect. I think that yeah, my parents are amazing and I really do think that they wanted what's best for me, but it was almost like we just I guess couldn't fail. We never really talked about anything negative. We only ever talked about anything positive. And I felt like I always just had to be above that threshold. Yeah.
Mm. I just want you to take a deep breath with that. That's big. Stay with her, stay with that experience. And I just want to say it as an aside to the listeners as we have connected with this place that all of these things that she just said can be true. We can know that our caregivers loved us more than like anybody in the world. We can know that they did the absolute best that they could and that objectively they did great. And we can also connect with these young parts of ourselves who experienced or interpreted those experiences in a way that does create fear or does create pain. And neither of those cancel out the other one. They both get to exist and be valid. And if we want to start to shift the energy on these things, if we want to transmute this, if we want to change our relationship to this, we have to acknowledge the pain first. We can't just skip to, oh, but it was well intentioned if we want to feel healing or change. So, BreAnne, I just want to commend you for being able to receive and acknowledge that this younger part of yourself did feel just the way that she interpreted what was happening in her young child brain that wasn't even fully developed yet. The way that she kind of took all of this to mean was that what was supposed to happen was only positivity, only happy things, only good things. And when inevitably, quote unquote negative things come up because we're human, she probably didn't know what to do with those. She probably felt like that meant something was wrong with her because they
Yeah.
weren't talked about. She didn't know where to put them. She probably wondered, wait, does this mean there's something wrong with me? Because all we ever talk about is, but like, does other people feel negative stuff too? Like, what do I even do with this? There was probably a lot of confusion and anxiety around that.
Yeah.
And I want you to keep your eyes closed and stay connected with her. And I want you to ask her about that. I want you to ask her how she felt trying to manage those expectations that she sort of intuited or interpreted from that situation.
It's hard and exhausting.
I want you to ask her a little bit more like, how was it hard? What parts were most exhausting?
Uh, she said some days she would feel sad, but she'd have to put on a smile. But she
Mm.
knew that she didn't feel the smile.
I want you to give her a hug and tell her she's okay to feel sad right now. I want you to give her a hug and tell her that you love her and that she's perfect, even in her sadness right now. And just take a deep breath, like accepting this part of yourself, letting some of that energy move. Now, I want you to ask her, what did she come to believe about these quote unquote negative parts of herself? Like, what story did she learn? What meaning did she assign those parts of herself, given the signals that she was taking in around her?
Yeah, I'm just getting that they were wrong and not part of the world, my world.
Ask her to tell us a little bit more about what she means by that.
Sorry, my dog's barking in the background and it's distracting me.
It's okay. Everything is happening perfectly. So just take a couple deep breaths and ground.
Ooh,
It's okay. The dog's allowed to bark,
I closed all the blinds so that it wouldn't.
and it's okay. And it's
Okay.
all right. It's perfect. Maybe your guides knew you just needed a minute
Okay, I did.
before
I
we
think
get going, right?
I
It
did
was
need a minute.
perfect.
Thanks, guys.
It was perfect. It was perfect. All right.
Okay.
Love it.
Okay. My
Oh,
higher
you can do
self
a little
is
like
giving
shake
my,
too. I don't know if you
yeah,
already
that
did
feels
one,
good.
but yeah, yeah. Shake off because you're tapping into some really deep energy in your body. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it is so good. You're
Whew.
doing amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Okay.
All right. So you can
Can
close
you
your
re-ask?
eyes.
Can you
Mhm.
re-ask the question?
I got you.
Okay.
I totally got you. Don't
Thank
worry.
you.
So you can close your eyes, go back to this safe place with this part of yourself you've been working with, your higher self there too. And I want you to connect back with her when she was acknowledging that it was hard for her to try to navigate the quote unquote negative things, the sadness, the fear, maybe the anxiety, and not ever having learned how to move through those or if those were okay. And I want you to ask her, what does she like think about those parts of herself? This part of you at the age that she's coming, like what did she learn to think about those parts of herself?
Okay. So that they were unwanted.
Mm. See if she wants to tell you anything more about that.
Yeah, that nobody around me liked those parts. I think that I would get way more positive feedback and therefore feel better about myself if I suppressed those parts of myself.
Okay, so I'm going to do a little aside for the listeners right now. So, one thing that we've done that is really important is that we've connected to the feelings, we've connected to the origin story, and that we have asked this part of ourselves what they grew to believe about themselves or the world as a result of whatever this origin story was, right? This story does not have to be what you actually believe now, but it is important, very important, arguably one of the most important parts of this, to figure out what they believed. Again, even if it's not accurate, because it's not until we acknowledge what one of these underlying beliefs is that we have the opportunity to work with it and to shift it if we choose. So for BreAnne, you have a part that, based on a very well-meaning, well-intentioned environment, you learned that there wasn't a place for all parts of you, that there were some parts of you that people responded well to, and that you experienced that kind of connection that is so natural to everybody that you really wanted, that you enjoyed. And these other parts, not only did you learn that people couldn't receive them and therefore couldn't connect with you, but you also never really learned how to manage them, how to process them, like what to do with them at all. And so, of course, this younger part of yourself developed this story that they were unwanted. I wonder if she even has a story that they were bad or that something was wrong with you. Why would you have these parts come up that other people didn't talk about? Like, why would these come up when what you wanted so badly was just the positive parts? How does she feel about that?
I think that's really accurate. She feels like the sadness or any kind of negative emotion, negative feelings is buried deep down. And for some reason, I see that kind of radiating out of my body as anxiety. Like I see this like worrying, I see this shaking
Mm,
happening. And yeah,
of course. Of course, anxiety is a like an active form of fear, right? And it makes total sense that if what she desired most was connection with people, which is again innate, and she learned that connection really only happened when she was one type of way, that this other thing that was coming up, even when she couldn't help it, that she would feel anxiety, that that would mean that she would be left alone if people saw it, if it came up too strong, if she couldn't mask it. This thing that almost felt uncontrollable in her at any moment cause her not to be connected with people. How does she feel about that?
that's the truth. She's nodding.
Okay, cool. So she's being seen, she's being acknowledged. Now we're going to do something really fun and we're going to turn to our higher selves. That younger part of you interpreted that scenario the best that she could, the best way that she could understand it. Again, having limited emotional maturity, cognitive development, just the best that she could, she interpreted it to be all the things that we just said. But I want you to turn to your higher self and I want you to ask your higher self what was really going on in that situation? What was the truth about what was going on in these dynamics that she was navigating?
My first thought is that she was making assumptions about the way that other people were feeling.
Of course, that's all she could do. I want you to ask your higher self, apart from her, like what was actually happening in the scenario. If you can now get that greater perspective that that younger self just didn't have from your higher self, what perspective about this does your higher self have about what was really happening?
That my parents were maybe just being protective
Mm,
and trying to, I guess, show me the good side of life. And then for some reason, because they were showing me all positive things and they never really talked about any challenges or anything negative, they kind of hid that from us, I think.
mhm.
And so since I never saw that from them as an example, so I felt that I couldn't reflect any of those things either.
Mm. I want you to ask your higher self, what else do you want me to know about what really happened in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not getting anything much. I just it's more that that was just my parents' way of showing love, that they just really loved me and that they wanted to protect me because and that's how they knew how to protect me was with just all the positivity.
Okay. I want you to keep your eyes closed, stay in your body. You're asking your body this the same way that you did the other questions, because your higher self is also in your subconscious, your superconscious. And I want you to ask your higher self, how can you love this part of you now? And maybe a different way than your parents tried to show you love. They did the best, they gave you the best version of love that they could, which is wonderful. But what's another way that you can express love, that you can express support? to this child part of yourself, as if you were stepping in as a parent. What does your higher self say about it?
That it's just really important to be real and express your emotions, whatever they might be. Yeah, just like to be true to yourself.
I want you to ask your higher self what happens with connections with other people when instead of just giving them the edited highlight reel of yourself, you give them the full version of yourself. What happens with relationships and connections? Ask your higher self.
Um, that they actually respect that more because it shows that you're more human. And
Mm,
then it's easier to relate, easier to make a connection because I mean, there's always ups and downs, and yeah, that it can actually help with a relationship.
that it can help with relationships. I want you to receive that. I want you to feel the energy of that answer from your higher self. Feel the truth of it. And I want you to ask your higher self about this fear that you have of being alone or abandoned if you show all parts of yourself. I want you to ask your higher self what their insight is for you about the fear of that outcome.
It just says you don't have to worry, it's not going to happen.
Mm.
She said people will love you for who you are, and if they don't, then that's too bad for them.
I want you to ask your higher self, do I have to fear being alone ever?
It's a no.
I want you to ask them to tell you more about that. Why do you not have to fear being alone?
Because I am surrounded by people who love me and love all of me, no matter if I take a little turn in my career or not, that they respect me and my decisions.
Yeah, I want you to stay in your body, your eyes closed with your higher self about this. I want you to receive that. Feel the vibration of that. Feel the vibration of the fact that love is multifaceted. Love is so expansive and that it can hold all parts of us. It can hold the bright and shiny parts. And actually, when it gets to show its real stuff, is when it holds the parts of us that aren't always bright and shiny. That love can deepen and expand and become more nuanced and multifaceted when we let it love more than just the bright and shiny. That relationships can become deeper, that they can become more trustworthy, that they can become more satisfying when we let them touch all parts of us. And I want you to turn to that younger self and I want you to welcome her into your lap. And I want you to like beam this understanding. Maybe you explain it to her, all these things you learned from your higher self. I want you to explain to her that what was really happening was just that your parents just they didn't know that you needed that kind of support working through the quote unquote negative feelings, but they would have loved you anyway. That people will love you both for your positivity and for everything else. That all of it is beautiful. All of it is lovable. That she doesn't have to hide those anymore. And that you're here to support her to learn how to let them move through. And that you guys can learn how to let other people love you through it too. I wanted to share with her that she never has to fear being alone. Not only because you found really beautiful people to be in your life, but because you're never going to leave her alone. You're never going to abandon her or turn her away for having sad or negative feelings. She will never be alone. How does she feel as you tell her this?
Currently, my whole body feels warm and fuzzy.
It's love energy right there.
Yeah, she
Mm,
is smiling with tears in her eyes, but happy tears of
mm,
understanding.
I love that. So I want you to give her a big ol' hug. And as you hug her, she's gonna transmute, she's gonna dissolve. You know that she can come back anytime she needs to. If she has more she needs to say, more she needs to be connected on, she's welcome at any time. But at this moment, as you hug her and you surround her in love, she transmutes into golden shimmers of light. And then I want you to turn to your higher self. And before we leave this place, we're going to ask our higher self about a couple other reservations that we had about some inspiration that we had. So we're going to turn to our higher self and we're going to tell them about how there's a little bit of a fear of the unknown, of bringing through this inspiration, this idea about the Reiki. But there's a little bit of fear of, but exactly how will it all come together? And I want you to ask your higher self what wisdom they have for you about that.
I'm just kind of getting that you won't know until you try, you won't know until you take the leap,
Mm,
and that part of it might still come back to that little girl and just wanting to be perfect, and
mm,
wanting to be the best at it, and now knowing that if you go and take the leap, that you can practice, and yeah, just that you won't know until you're there, and that's okay.
And that you'll
But
be
it'll be
loved no
okay.
matter what. Sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want you to ask your higher self, do they have any other tips or suggestions for you on next steps of how you could start to bring through this inspiration or any other messages about it for you in general?
Oh man, you have me so emotional. Yeah.
We're doing it
So,
just right. This is perfect.
oh my God.
These patterns, Kyle C
Oh,
says that crying is the patterns falling out of your face.
yeah. Okay, great. Let it release, please.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do have something, I guess. So she says that with being able to incorporate something spiritual into my practice, I'll be able to see more of the client in front of me as a whole and be able to see what they need. And that's really cool to me because so I work at a private clinic and I do a lot of manual therapy. So if that's working directly on somebody's joint or muscle massage, whatever it might be, but um, with my Reiki training, then I might be able to realize what they need, and it might not be that. It might be Reiki, or it might be something else. It might be psychology, or it might be, I guess, just looking at them and not automatically just saying, I guess, sticking in my narrow vision of, oh, this is what I can do for physio, but can I refer you to somebody else that would help you even more? Or would the
Mhm.
Reiki help more than the physio? So, uh, okay, so
Wow.
like looking at mind, body, spirit, looking at the person, and then being able to intuitively know what direction they need to go in order to get better. That makes sense.
Yes. Stay
Oh,
connected in there. Close your eyes and connect with that feeling because the vibration of what you've just described is part of the vision that's going to lead you. And obviously, by you feeling emotional, is something that connects with you to be able to like see somebody more holistically or being able to intuit information that might have a greater impact on them, that's something that really fills your heart that you would love. And the vibration of being able to tap into even more of that, to expanding your level of service and impact for people, how good that feels. That feels like the vibration that is going to lead you. And you're feeling it right now. You're embodying it right now. And whatever types of inspirations or actions or perspectives that you get when you're in this place is the things that are going to lead you towards manifesting more and more of that energy in your life. So I'm going to have you turn to your higher self and thank them, knowing that you can come back to this place to connect with them, to gain their perspective and their wisdom on any situation. And I want you to hug them in a similar way that that younger self dissolved. This higher self is dissolving and that energy is being absorbed into you. This golden light is being dissolved, absorbed through your skin and into the cells of your body. You feel it start to integrate into your very cells, activating this energy that was always there, always possible for you to tap into, almost like it's being awakened. All of these perspective shifts that your higher self offered you, these new ways to believe about yourself and relationships in the world, they start to soak in. And as we start to move to close out of this, you walk back to the door of your Sacred Heart Center. Again, knowing you can come back to this place anytime you want. On your next exhale, moving through the door back into your heart space in your body. And when you're back in your body, just taking a minute to feel what this vibration feels like in your body, observing it, making note of it so that you can identify when you're in this vibration again in the future, making note of it so that you can evoke this same feeling again whenever you want. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
oh wow, thank you, Bree.
You're so welcome. How are you feeling?
Honestly, I I'm not kidding when I say this. Like I just feel so alive. I feel like my body's vibrating. Oh, good vibrations.
Yes. And that's such a beautiful way to describe it because that's exactly what's happened. You've let like the energy of your soul move through you more greatly. Like you are alive, you are life force energy. And part of you clearing out this old story that just wasn't true, it was just a misunderstanding, like an error in thinking about it all. With you clearing that out, you have more space for that light soul energy to literally fill your body.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I guess you probably feel a little bit lighter.
For sure. Yeah, kind of. I'm like floating but grounded.
Yes, yes. Okay. So what, thinking back now, are some of like the biggest things that like surprised you or were kind of like ahas moving through that energy?
I think the word alone was really surprising to me. I don't consciously think that I've ever, yeah, consciously felt alone. So that was really, really interesting.
Illuminating, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just to get to that level and
Mhm.
work through it. I'm amazed. That was really cool.
Yay. Okay, so a little aside to the listeners. So this is my trigger alchemy process, like what we just did, right? And in my course Soul Power that I'm going to put out, I am going to explain that process so that you can work through it. But there is like a little bit of like an intuitive aspect, like exactly what kinds of questions and where we go. Like you kind of got to feel into the energy. And I do find that it can be really helpful to be guided through it the first couple times as you get like the hang of it. But this is a skill that anybody can use to meet any part of themselves that they want, you know, and it's really beautiful.
So I feel like I need to, I don't know, leave you a review somewhere or something because I have had psychology for years to try and address my people pleasing tendencies. I have a business coach and I have a psychologist, and they both have been trying to work on this and like years. I probably 6 or 7 years, and I feel like in the last hour I've gained more, so much more. Like I have such a deeper understanding about it than I ever got to in 6 or 7 years, and I don't even know, yeah, how much I would have spent towards psychology, but this this was the way. Like this is exactly what I needed.
And I just like, first of all, thank you so much for saying that. That's like, I'm so happy for you, you know, because I feel in my heart and my soul that like this is possible for everybody. And I think even just like people opening up to the possibility that they can change deeply and a lot quicker than they think, and that they can gain freedom and like liberation and peace like so much more easily than they think is like one of the things I just feel most passionately about. But I also just like want to point to the fact that like you came up with this, you know, like sure, I asked questions and I followed my own intuition about like where to lead and guide it. But like just to pointing this out to everybody, like she was the one that was answering these questions. Like your body has the wisdom, your higher self has the wisdom. It's just, can we like tune into it and let it work its magic in us? Can we let it? You know what I mean? And like you just did such a wonderful job of just being open and letting it reveal itself and letting it move, you know?
Yeah, and okay, so I just realized something else, that I think that in my years of going to a psychologist, I'd be probably answering their questions in more of an ego mindset, versus what we just spent the last little bit doing was answering questions from my soul place. And so I think it was just so cool how you were able to start me off by visualizing my younger self and my higher self and being able to connect those two so that I guess, yeah, I was answering questions from my soul planet. And I think that's why it just struck a way deeper chord inside me.
Yeah, that's like one of my feelings too, is that like it's one thing to do like fear and trigger alchemy like from that vibration, but the magic that's available to us is when we're plugged into the soul vibration. Like that has to be a part of the formula. That has to be the part of the equation if we want some of the like magical level of results, you know?
Totally. It's like it's getting way down to the root cause.
100% because the soul has the perspective. Like the soul can see straight to it and it's like above it. So it's not caught up in the frequency of that. It can jump out and see it in a different way. And with that perspective, things can move hugely.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just so excited to end this call and go and look up some Reiki courses.
And see, that's it. Like now you feel like you can let that inspiration flow through you. You can let your soul energy flow through you now. You're like so excited.
I am excited.
Ah,
It
I
just
love
it
it.
feels like it just happened so fast.
Yeah.
This was
And
one session, and I feel like I saw two pathways. I saw one where I just continued to be a physio, and that felt boring and like I wouldn't be able to impact people or like heal people's injuries as best as possible. And then there was the other pathway that also included Reiki, but there was like big rocks there. And I really feel like those rocks are no longer there. I could just stroll down that other pathway now.
oh my God, I love it. I love it.
Really, I really truly am not just saying this. Like it almost sounds corny now coming out of my mouth, but it's like I feel it.
No,
in
we
my
can,
soul.
I guarantee you the listeners are going to feel it like in your voice, like feel how it's changed. And what's beautiful about this too is that you're going to be able to remember this whenever that pattern of people pleasing comes up. There might be a few iterations of you connecting back to the truth of this energy that we sort of uncovered today and choosing that intentionally, right? There might be
Yeah,
a few iterations with that inner child where you have to soothe them and remind them we don't have to be afraid being alone. All parts of us are lovable. The right people, like the relationships will actually get better when I show who I really am, you know? And like start to learn how to like more deeply release that pattern if there are other aspects that feel like they still kind of stick a little bit, you know? But now that you know the truth, like you know which path you can choose. And so now you just get to choose it, you know? And if you do want to continue to try to use this process on your own, which you're so welcome to, like you can come back and meet these parts and you know now you're starting to learn what to do with that energy when it comes up and when it feels sticky so that you can stay on the soul planet, as you said before.
totally. It's great over here.
It feels so much better, right?
Yeah, it really does.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I just have to say, even though it feels a little bit weird to like toot my own horn, you are not the first person to say that. The people who have done one-on-one coaching containers with me have literally
Yeah.
said the same thing. Years of therapy did not get me to the level of transformations that just doing a few months of coaching with you did. And I'm walking away from a few months of coaching with literally like tools and practices I will use the rest of my life. So I just like, I appreciate you saying that. And again, even as it feels a little uncomfortable, like this is not a one-off case. So I really encourage people to like look into my one-on-one program. Like if you are feeling like there's inspiration from a soul level place that you want to bring through, or there's really big blocks that are affecting your quality of life and like affecting your ability to feel authentic and feel free and feel love and all these things that you want to feel, I highly encourage you like looking into giving yourself the opportunity to like not just have one of these sessions but many of these sessions and stuff in between to be able to see like a level of transformation that you might not have even realized is possible. So thank you so much to you, BreAnne. I really have to commend you for being so open-hearted and for volunteering to do a coaching session live on the podcast and just being so open so that you could release some of this resistance to the way that like your soul wanted to move through in your life.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm so grateful also for you taking the time to help me through this. It really does mean a lot.
This is like one of my favorite things to do. It's absolutely no problem. Thank you everybody so much for listening to this episode. Please message me if you have any questions. Please message me if you have any big ahas. That session is specific to my coaching sessions. It's different than my Akashic sessions where I'm channeling through messages and guidance and information from your Akashic record keepers. What I just did would be my breakthrough coaching session, which is my one-on-one coaching that I offer in my program Soul Powered. But if you are curious in the Soul Powered course, again, check out the show notes and my link tree, because all of the links of where you can find all the things, whether you want to start with the course and do sort of like a self-guided, way through all of this, or if you want to work with me one-on-one, all of the ways that you'll be able to sign up for that will be in the links in the description. Let me know if you're interested in seeing more content like this on the podcast or otherwise. And I'm excited to see you guys next week for more breakthroughs. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode and for tuning in to Breakthroughs with Bree. Please share your favorite episodes with your friends and loved ones, and please like, subscribe, and rate the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it, as it helps me continue to create these episodes to help support your breakthroughs. I would love to stay connected with you, so please follow me on social media at Healing with Bree. Please check out my website at healingwithbree.net, which will always have the most up-to-date information about the services that I'm currently offering. And please consider using the link in the show descriptions to subscribe to my email list so you can be the first to hear about any offerings. You can get all of the free resources that I offer, as well as get my weekly channeled messages. My deepest love and gratitude to you, and I can't wait to have more breakthroughs with you next week.